It is a sight and sound that people living in one Coventry neighborhood thought they would never see or hear. The dismantling of a decade-old asphalt plant that had been the source of controversy and friction between its owner, the neighbors, and at times, town officials. Over the past 6 weeks, Tom Maiozzi made good on a pledge when we spoke with him more than 3 years ago to move his plant out of town and away from dozens of people who had complained about noise and particles drifting over to their homes.
You come to a moral decision where there's, how many people am I keeping awake at night? How am I affecting their lives? Could I find another location that would benefit the people, benefit myself? So I worked, diligently towards a solution.
Maiozzi, who has worked in the paving business since the early 1980s, bought this plant on Airport Road in 2004, a mile from Route 3, saying it was the only asphalt operation for sale in Rhode Island at the time. For years, he had been buying asphalt from others and wanted to manufacture his own product. He made upgrades to the plant, but almost immediately started getting complaints from a nearby housing development. The uneasy coexistence became worse when in 2009, President Obama's stimulus package went through, calling for a huge increase of shovel-ready paving projects.
We kept everybody awake at night. No choice of mine. It's mandated by the state's traffic management plan, known as a TMP. We had to pave at night. So when you pave at night, you make asphalt at night. And I can definitely side with the neighbors who unfortunately were sold lots that abutted us. They were looking for peace and quiet. We couldn't give them that.
Opponents also claimed he expanded the plant without permission. The town and Maiozzi wound up in court, where a judge reached a consent agreement prescribing a compromise on hours of operation. But the council at the time never signed the agreement, only the solicitor. And last year, the agreement was declared invalid when that came to light.
That was the nail in the coffin for us at the site.
You knew you wouldn't be able to operate
nights
under those conditions.
Right. Even all of last year, we didn't operate from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., which is what the ordinance that they passed states.
Maiozzi had been looking the past several years to move, but finding a new location proved challenging. One possible site in Exeter fell through. He eventually found this parcel at Quonset, which welcomed him with open arms and a streamlined permitting process. 10 acres instead of 6 in Coventry, and natural gas instead of oil, which will save him $160,000 a year in energy use alone.
I'm constantly looking, and we needed a place where I wouldn't run into the same issues.
What's the advantage of Quonset?
Direct highway access, no residential abutters, natural gas, 24 hours of operation. I'm the quietest guy in the neighborhood there.
Over the past several weeks, we watched as Maiozzi and his crew disassembled the massive components to the old plant, put them on flatbed trucks, and drove them very slowly 14 miles south to Quonset. Each trip took the better part of an hour down the back roads from Coventry to North Kingstown. On the first Saturday of January, Maiozzi's crew was heading into the home stretch, taking down the second big silo when it began snowing in earnest. By the end of the day, 10+ inches had fallen in Coventry. What were you thinking Saturday as the snow's beginning to fall, it's getting colder, you guys have been out there? What are you thinking? It's a race against the clock?
Can't race.
Can't race.
We move slow. If we were to hurry, that's when tragedy would strike. So, no, I said to myself, I'm glad it's snow, not rain. That's it. We just kept working in the snow. This is what the new site looked like on Tuesday. Silos and equipment reassembled. Looking back, Maiozzi said the Coventry plant's proximity to the neighborhood was a big problem, but adds some of the houses were built after he had begun operations here in 2004. If you were to look at it, it looked like it was the element of a light bulb. And the shell of the light bulb would be residential properties. We had to drive in through a school zone that just acquired sidewalks this year. So the whole time my trucks are coming in and out, there's always a fear of, God forbid, a child gets, hurt, injured, or even worse. So the whole time you're thinking, we can't get out of here soon enough. Most towns, if they're planning, for the future, would buffer a heavy industrial zone with a light industrial zone, with a commercial zone, then a residential zone. And that's not the case here. They buffered the industrial park with residential property.
Maiozzi says he will be done in plenty of time for the start of the next paving season in a few months. He has gotten to build a plant from scratch instead of trying to fit a circle into a square in Coventry. He will also be able to run the plant 24 hours a day. In Coventry, he couldn't fire it up until 7 a.m.
Instead of the trucks leaving at 7 o'clock to sit in rush hour traffic, they can be sitting in the southeastern Massachusetts area, we'll say, by 7. Right. On the job, loaded with mix.
And the past couple of years, Maiozzi said, have brought added challenges from the town of Coventry.
Every day I would go to work for the last 2 years, the police would greet us at the gate with squad cars. They would drive in the property, they would drive out,
just to make sure he wasn't starting before 7. The price for Coventry to see Maiozzi leave? Just shy of $140,000 in tax revenue. And Maiozzi says he will spend $800,000 on moving costs. He won't miss the contentious meetings with dozens of people showing up in opposition to his business.
When you went to those meetings, what went through your mind hearing all that?
Definitely sympathize with the people. In my mind, I was already working for a solution. I found out that you don't need to be in love with a piece of land. You need to be in love with who you are, and when you go to work, where you work, or where your environment. You need to be in love with the environment that you spend most of we spend most of our lives at work in this country. We work over 2,000 hours a year as Americans. So do you want to wake up 30 years from now and say, I saved $750,000 and I'll go back to the savings, but I hated every day I went to work?
In Coventry and Quonset, Jim Hummel for the Hummel Report.